Hey there, welcome to the next video in the Bitbucket Blitz video series. In the last video, I showed how teams can use dynamic pipelines to update all CI/CD pipelines in a workspace with a single command. In this video, I'm going to introduce 4 Bitbucket pipeline configuration options you can add to your bitbucket-pipelines.yml files to improve performance and reduce costs. The first configuration option is a size parameter. This option lets you fine-tune the amount of compute for each step in your pipeline. For your resource-hungry steps, you can specify up to a 16x size. For steps that don't require that extra power, Bitbucket Pipeline defaults to a 1x size to minimize your costs. The second option is the ability to share state between pipeline steps with variable sharing. The third option is conditional pipeline step execution, which makes good use of variable sharing. You can create branching pipelines that only run steps under the right conditions by using these two options together. The final option is new pipeline step failure strategies. When a step fails, you can have the pipeline stop like always, or you can ignore the step failure and let the pipeline continue, or you can retry the step a specified number of times. This is great for handling things like flaky tests. These options let you build more effective CI/CD pipelines by giving you more control over when and how Bitbucket Pipelines execute your steps. Now, I'm going to jump into Bitbucket and we're going to take a quick look at a sample Bitbucket Pipeline.yml file that uses these configuration options. After looking at the Bitbucket Pipeline.yml file, we'll examine what an execution of that file looks like. Okay, here we are in Bitbucket. We're in a repository and we're going to take a look at this bitbucket pipeline.yml file. So we've got a bunch of steps defined in here. What we're going to take a look at first is this size parameter. So for our build step, we're specifying a size 4x. That's going to use more resources and more memory than the default 1x step. You can specify the size parameter on a per step basis. So this step we have a 2x and this step we have a 2x, and down here we have a 1x. By default, Bitbucket provides a 1x. So if you don't specify the size parameter, you're going to get a 1x no matter what. That minimizes your costs. Now, if we scroll a little bit farther down, we also see the script section where we echo a variable var1 with a value of 5 to this Bitbucket pipeline's variables path. And then we say it's an output variable. So this is how we share variables between pipeline steps. In our script somewhere, we set our value and then we output it. And later on, we can use that. So the step right below it, use variable conditions to pass. We can see that this variable is checked to see whether or not it equals 5. And if it does, this step will execute. And then we have a step further down that does something similar. It has a condition that checks to see whether that variable equals 3. And if it does equal 3, this step will also execute. So when we look at the pipeline execution later, we're going to see that this step, use variable condition pass, will pass, and this step, use variable condition fail, will fail. And then if we go a little further down, we can see when we define our pipeline that we're going to run all of our steps, and in the good test case, we have an on-fail strategy of just fail it. So if our good tests fail, we want to fail. Then we have another step, bad tests, and when the bad tests fail, we want to ignore it. And then we have a set of flaky tests. When the flaky tests fail, we want to retry up to a max of 5 times. So now I'm going to cut over to a pipeline execution of this file and we'll take a look at what that looks like. And we'll click on our most recent pipeline execution and we can see the steps we defined in the bitbucket pipeline.yml file. So we run our build step and then we execute our create variable step. This sets our variable to a value of 5. We saw in the bitbucket pipeline configuration that we had a step that runs when the value equals 5. So that's this step here. And then we can see that the step that we set up with the condition for the variable to equal 3 is skipped entirely. So it doesn't fail, it just doesn't pass the condition, so it's never executed. Then we have our good test step. These tests always pass, we're confident in them, and it passes. The failure condition for this was set up as fail. So if any of these tests have failed, this step would have failed, and therefore the whole pipeline would have failed. This would be red. Then we have our bad tests. We know that these tests fail regularly, so the failure condition for these tests is to ignore them. And as we can see, these tests failed, so we just ignored the failure because we're kind of expecting that. And then finally we have some flaky tests. And we can see that the flaky test ran twice before they passed. So that means the first execution, they actually failed, but because it did multiple retries, eventually they passed. And because they passed on the retry, the step as a whole passes, and therefore our pipeline executes. So the configuration options together just give you more control over how the pipeline executes. All right, thank you for watching and learning about some of Bitbucket Pipeline's advanced configuration options. You can learn more about these configuration options by following the link in the QR code. An easy way to get started with these configuration options is to add a larger size parameter value to your slowest executing pipeline steps. Then, follow up by adding retry failure conditions to any flaky pipeline steps. Okay, I'll catch you folks in the next video. Stay safe.